Okay, I will call the special meeting of June 26th to order for Lowell Light Power. Steve, you want to do roll call?
Sure. Chairman Beecham?
Here.
Schraubin?
Here.
Dickerman?
Here.
Van Kulen?
Here.
Cavalier's absent.
And I would entertain a motion to excuse Tina.
Hello, excuse me. I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved, supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the agenda. We've changed it, we've added a couple little things that you'll see. We're gonna,
But
We
they're
were
on the
good.
agenda.
huh?
They're on the agenda, right?
Yeah. We were going to, the meeting was, I called this special meeting to go over the Public Act 95 and because we have to make a decision by July 1. So, and we wanted, from our last meeting discussion, we wanted some more information. Since then, Steve has a couple of easements that he wants to get approved at our meeting. So with that, I would approve, or look for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I move to approve the agenda as presented. I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comments. There is no public here tonight. These are open meetings and public can attend, but we'll move on to action items. Steve?
Alrighty, first action item tonight, primary focus of the meeting is Public Act 95. I included that act in your packet. It's fairly short and simple, straightforward for your review, but in short, since 2013, Lowell Light Power has opted in to Public Act 95, and what that means is that we collect on every single customer's bill a charge not to exceed $1 per month that goes into the low income energy assistance fund at the state level, and the state determines what that charge is. I think it's every July or August, and this past year that charge has been 93 cents. Since 2013, FROM has applied for a grant from the state, from this pool of money, and has received at least the amount we have collected, and really actually about twice that much. We collect roughly $32,000 a year. They've received grants as high as $60,000, $70,000. Due to changes in state law and just the way this program is administered, FROM will no longer be applying for the grant. So my concern is that we will be collecting this money and it will go elsewhere, mainly at the east side of the state. And after talking with 6 other utilities that opt out, that is all they're feeling as well, and that's one of the main reasons they've opted out, is the money won't come back to their community. If we were to opt out, we would no longer be able to shut off from November 1st through April 15th per the Public Act. So because FROM will no longer be applying for this grant, I thought it would be appropriate to bring this to the board. I did so last month. Including your packet are statistics of the 40 municipal utilities within the state and whether they opt in or out. For the purposes of graphs 1 and 3, I did not include Lansing. Lansing has close to 100,000 customers. The next closest is Holland. They have just under 29,000. So putting in 100,000 customers, and they do opt out, by the way, it would skew all the data. I looked at the charts and graphs. So took them out. For graph 2, opt in versus opt out, they were included in that pie chart. So as you can see, 5 out of every 8 utilities in the state does opt out. It appears the smaller utilities on average do opt in. You can see by the data, and then on the third graph you can see where we stack up in terms of average, median, maximum, and minimum size utilities.
Steve, what are these units on graph 3 and 1 on the left? On the,
Yep, total number of meters.
okay.
Yep, total number of meters.
It's not dollars.
Nope, total number of meters. And it's roughly close to about $1 a month. It's 93 cents, so, somebody with 20,000 meters approximately would collect $20,000 a month, just under.
I didn't ask, I sent you some questions.
Yep, I didn't know if you want to discuss
Well,
anything I've already talked about, or if you
so-
want to go into your question.
Well, I have one that you might not, I didn't send you this, but it just, just popped up. In your conversations with any of these, do any of them do any kind of assistance themselves, a program that they run themselves?
Sure. So the cities I talked with were Holland, Zealand, Grand Haven, Sturgis, Wyandotte, and Sebring. And most utilities did have some sort of internal program similar to our A+ fund that they contributed dollars to in lieu of collecting this leaf charge. And that was a budgeted line item or a budgeted approved item every year. So like Zealand, for example, they have $25,000 budgeted, and they call it a grant. It's really not a grant, but that they will contribute to anyone in need, and they have an independent third party decide if someone qualifies. Very similar to our A+ fund. And the way they administer that is they don't contribute $25,000 up front. They do it on an as-needed basis, $2,500 at a time. So they are willing to contribute up to $25,000 in a year, but at the beginning of the year, they put $2,500 essentially in a pot or in a different GL, as you know, a future payable. Once that runs out, they'll put another $2,500 in. Does that make sense? Grand Haven, they take 50% of like their late fee, the tag fee, the shut-off fee, and put that money into something that's similar to our A+ fund. And again, every utility I talk with, they don't decide who does or doesn't qualify. It's very sticky when you have, it's gonna look, oh, you liked us, or this person has a relationship, or they were former neighbors, or cousin's friend, so they always get out of it. But yes, there are a lot of utilities that instead of doing this, they contribute money to some internal fund. But it would have to be a board-approved budgetary item. Does that make sense? Just like we have a benevolence fund. You're okay putting $5,000 out to non-related low light and power services, and the board approves that.
So our A+ program that we currently have is, and I know my wife puts an additional $5 on every bill. That's all voluntary. Does Light and Power match any portion of that?
We match 100% of everything that's given.
Okay,
So when you round up your bill and an additional $5, we contributed an equal amount.
okay, so do we have numbers of what that,
It's right around $3,000 in our fund.
Is that annually or as a,
That's current cash level, and it's not utilized often,
So
to be honest with you.
so that 3,000 is 1,500 of, and then 1,500 of matching
Yes.
funds?
Yes.
Okay.
I know you had some other questions. The 6 utilities I talked with, they obviously can't shut off customers during the winter months.
is that a problem for them?
That's what I asked. All of them have not seen any significant change to their total that they ultimately write off. They do have customers delay payment, but they've taken some strategies to try to overcome this. First, they still send out a similar notice that looks like a disconnection or shut-off notice, but it says like late payment notice. They've tailored their language. Instead of saying you'll be shut off on this day, they say you'll be eligible for shut off after this date. So it's kind of a play on words. It's nothing untruthful, but it'll say you're eligible for shut off after December 12th if you do not submit payment. Granted, it's
Actually,
120 days after December 12th.
After April 15th.
But it's kind of a way to still send out the notice, be in compliance with the law, and kind of, a lot of people don't read their mail, to be honest. They other utilities, two other utilities, if someone receives a disconnect notice, while they can still shut off in summer months, they'll require that person who receives a disconnect notice to make an additional deposit. Right now, we allow for that, if someone ultimately becomes delinquent, but they've decided just, instead of taking that approach, just change your habits. If you receive a disconnect notice, we'll increase your deposit by $50. And that's just the consequence. And then, so it kind of provides that buffer that once the winter months hit, their deposit might be 3 or 4 months. So if they do leave, you have enough money that it's not really an issue. Now we can lien all property owners. So anybody who owns their own property will ultimately collect that money. So that, we're only talking about really renters here, that we could lose, the electric revenue.
Do we lien property owners?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Say what-
And the charter does allow for that.
What were, late, because we kind of talked, and everybody has kind of a different language and different things, but, so, I'm also looking at, I guess I'm familiar, with credit cards, with everybody, with late payment fees, and they range, up to, around that $35, and I think we're at 10,
10 plus 2%
plus, 2% of the
total bill.
total bill. So again, with credit cards, you have a late fee, a processing fee on top of the interest that you're being charged. So again, I don't know if the other board members are, I guess, what would be the effect if we raised our late fee from $10 to $30?
It's significant.
As an incentive to pay your bill on time. I'm just, those are some of the questions that I have.
So we collect approximately between $5,000 and $6,000 in late fees a month right now. And most of that is, your $10. The 2% on a $70 bill is only $1.40. So for, if you get the $70 bill, which is our average customer bill, $1.40 is the 2%, $10 is just the flat fee. So when you look at the $5,000 or $6,000, what percentage of that is the 2% portion of the late charge, and what percentage of that is the $10? The majority of that's the 10. So when you say what would happen if we go from 10 to 30, well, that $5,000 amount would go, not exactly
Yeah,
15, but
but
closer to like the $12,000, $13,000 range. So on a revenue standpoint, it would increase significantly. I'm not sure if this would incentivize people. Eventually, if it got to a number high enough, you would think, if it was $1,000, for example, everybody would pay. Granted, you might not be on the board anymore, because everybody else would, but nobody would be late.
And I'm not looking to create, I'm not trying to, if we raise that, I'm not looking, that's a way to create more revenue. It's more of, to me, I'm looking at it as more of a incentive to pay on time. And again, then maybe we like the one, we take those funds and put those funds into the A+ program or whatever, a portion of that, or, I don't know, I'm just throwing those different ideas out.
So you said roughly 5,000 a month now, which is significantly more than the opt-in program brings in.
Yes.
Even if we just went a small,
And those
small increment, like $2 or $4 or $5 or whatever. If we increased that late fee and then placed that excess into the A+ fund, That would create a fund that would be sustainable.
Yes, but we're also collecting the money for that fund from the
very
people
need
that
it.
probably.
Yeah,
Need it.
that's a good point. Yeah. Well, except for me, we pay late because.
Because you forgot.
But
Yeah.
these are fun.
Yeah.
Now, not many people have the same structure we do, but everybody collects their money in different ways. Some people, everybody sends a shut-off notice. Some people charge $10 or $15 once a shut-off notice is sent. And their late fees only 1.5% to 2%. We don't charge them any money. Some people charge when a door hanger's hung, $20, $15. We charge nothing. So everybody's getting their money from somewhere.
Yeah.
There's
just a lot of different ways.
we do it on the front end to try to incent people to pay, and I'm sure that does help.
Well, we've had historically, in the last few years, we've had extremely low write-offs.
Extremely, I think it was $3,100 or $3,200 last year.
If we take an approach that this year I think it sounds like perhaps we're thinking about opting out. I don't know what the rest of the board's thinking. But if we opt out, maybe we could just let status quo go for a year and see what happens next year. If all of a sudden we find that write-off amount has increased significantly, then we need to probably reapproach.
I know in the memo I said I'm gonna stay out of it, but from a financial perspective, and this is strictly financial, if I think about a ratepayer, as a collective group, our ratepayers are paying $32,000 to the state. If Lowell and Power, the board made a decision, well, we're gonna fund the A+ fund with $15,000 or $20,000, or let's say our write-offs went from $3,200 to $15,000. Well, we're gonna take $12,000 of our budget and put that towards our write-offs. Well, I would think the public would support the board at Light and Power because in the past they were paying $32,000. Well, instead of paying 32, they're only paying 12. So as a collective whole, the city of Lowell is paying $20,000 less than we have in the past. Granted, our write-offs, I'm saying, I don't think they're going to increase by 400 or 500%. But even if they did, the collective body and community is better off. Even if our write-offs go up by 5 times, because they're paying less total dollars in their bill to incur those late, to incur that uncollectible cost. Does that make sense?
So the suggestion would be that we would be eliminating the 93-cent per month fee, right? Because we're not collecting for the state.
Correct.
And then we would fund separately through our budget this A+ increase.
Correct, that would be used so that, for our write-offs.
We're also operating right now in a very strong economic time. I want to make sure the decision we're making and the way we're thinking is worst case for when the inevitable next recession comes years down the road, and that we're structuring any changes we make that are semi-permanent to late fees, rate structure, whatever, for when there will become a higher number of late payments and folks that are struggling. Because if they're record low right now, they will eventually be high again for whatever reason.
So, just so I understand, so that's 32,000 we're collecting, goes in the state pool. From had access to that pool and routinely would get around 50 to 70,000. But what was their money limited to? Was that restricted to, had to be used for certain uses, or could it just be grants they could use for anything?
Had to be with fuel oil, propane, gas, or electricity. It had to be for
So as assisting people to pay their energy bills?
energy bills, yes.
And I think they had to have full accounting of their disbursements. I think we talked about that stuff.
Right.
But it didn't have to be restricted to Lowell Light and Power. It could be Lowell school districts, the area.
Right, so basically the from service area, so to speak.
And Salvation Army and DHHS will not restrict making payments to Lowell residents because we don't collect.
Right.
Now, they will restrict Zealand and Seaboyne have told me during November 1st or April 15th. But they said, I believe there's like an $850 maximum. This is what Zealand told me, of what DHS can pay. So once April 16th comes around and we have a notice saying you'll be shut off, they'll catch them back up completely. Does that make sense?
Oh, I see. So the disbursements are typically to the utility.
Yes,
I mean, they're
but they will not disperse to us well,
until
they can-
after that.
if they cannot be shut off.
Yep.
DHHS will not disperse to us during the non-shut-off period, because they don't have a threat of shut-off. But once April 16th comes, they will contribute to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so then, like, so Brando was assisting individuals paying their energy bills. DHS, what are they doing?
Doing the same thing.
Okay,
Yep,
but they
same
pay
thing.
it through us?
Nope, they just submit payment to us.
Oh, okay,
Fromm did the same thing.
all right. But
Yep.
They just won't pay us when
They-
we're
they
in
don't-
the winter.
Right, they would not pay us if there's not a threat of shut-off.
Okay, which kind of, you can see, because there's that chance they pay you before then, so.
Yeah, the way
So-
Lori at Zealand phrased it, they'll actually, I mean, if someone applies for DHHS, they will ask, well, who is your utility for power needs? If they know, if DHHS knows Lowell Power isn't collecting, and it's the middle of December, they'll say to that customer, we cannot submit payment because they're not collecting this charge, and they cannot shut you off. Once April 16th comes around, they will submit payment for that customer. Now, Consumers Energy serves a portion of the community of Lowell, so anyone served by Consumers Energy in the school district could still receive assistance. So it's not like us not collecting this would have a ripple effect anyone else. It's
They just wouldn't, there would be no disbursements to Lake Power.
Correct.
So, the, question is, how would we, or could we, if we opted out, paying 93 cents, and we decided that we wanna put 50 cents, reduce it to 50 cents on a bill, and have that money go into the just for speaking sense, the A+ program, can we do that?
Sure, what we would need to do, the state requires that we itemize out that line item.
Okay,
What I would suggest is, in our, we have a miscellaneous section in our income statement, and then there's a miscellaneous within that, and a lot of that's the benevolence. We would increase that to, let's say the board wanted to contribute 50 cents per customer per month. So that's roughly $1,400 a month, times by 12 months. What's that, $16,800. So we would, in that miscellaneous line item, instead of budgeting $5,000 in a year, we'd budget $21,800 in a year. Does that make sense? So we keep our rate structure the same, but when we design our rates with like Mark Beauchamp, he looks at all of our operating expenses. What our distribution, what our generation, what our purchase power. And they're broken down, well, he looks at every component. We would design our rates knowing we have to recover this expense through our rate structure. And we would have this budget amount that we could contribute to the A+ that would flow through the benevolence line item under miscellaneous. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And one of my other questions, would Fromm be willing to administer if we had?
They already do administer the decision for if anyone qualifies for A+.
Okay,
So they already do that now. I'd want to re-engage them because obviously the level could go up if we're contributing to this fund. My feeling is yes, they'd be willing to continue administering our A+ fund.
and that's not something that we have to decide tonight. What we really have to do is, if we have some thoughts of what we might want to do, or we might want to, like you said, Jeff, see how things go for 6 months or whatever the case may be. We just have to decide tonight whether we're opting in or opting out.
And the one thing I don't want us just to, yeah, I agree, I don't want to, hey, let's decide on 50 cents, because maybe we'll decide, oh, now we've over-collected in our rate
Right.
structure, and we built our rates assuming we're going to need that 16 or 17 grand. When we find out, maybe 5,000's enough, maybe we won't have any problems or increase like some of these other cities have experienced. So little if anything we're gonna have to contribute to A+.
So I guess, I mean, what I'm, I guess, most maybe concerned about is just there was perceived need that for From to use the 70,000 or whatever they would collect to help people out in this area. It wasn't our customers per se, it was just the Lowell area, because some of them were consumers that they didn't, you know. But it's definitely kept it near the community, in the greater community. If we opt out, the community still has access to that pool of money from the state. And
Yes.
that's not gonna be turned away from them. Payment will be delayed to us, I guess, given the timing, but it's not gonna, there's not gonna be this negative impact to the community of, they're not gonna lose access to this money. What was the benefit we saw before of collecting it was that we would contribute 32,000 to that pool and get twice that back. And we knew that was at least going to the community because Brown was administering it and they're a local,
Yes.
nonprofit. And so I guess what I would think would be nice is if we ask Brown, is there a perceived need beyond what this pool is providing? Is there a need to increase A+ or to, or whatever? Because they're the ones who are knowing what the need is, right? That's part of their business they're in. And so I think if we just ask them, what's their opinion, what's their advice, is it worth it to add more to A+ or not? And we can decide that later and, get some input from them, but at this point, to me at least, I feel like it's not worth staying opted in. But, we should probably opt out, in my opinion, just because there's no guarantee that benefit comes back to the community. Maybe it does, maybe there are people in the little area will use at least 30,000 from that fund. But if there is that need, we can provide it some other way without using this pool. And that's kind of what I feel is that whatever's in A+ now isn't enough, we can find a way to add to it. And how we do that, we can figure that out later, and how much we add, get some input from or whoever.
The other part of this is we're talking energy. We're talking, when you're talking about that money that was, the grants that Ron was getting, that was used for gas, basically gas and electric, fuel oil, propane. So I understand what you're saying, that, that need, but so
It wasn't a purely light power electric.
they weren't, from my understanding, the state was not collecting from gas consumers. They weren't. They
Oh,
weren't. No, they weren't.
Consumers, only the electric side?
Correct.
Only the electric side. So the
Right,
gas, propane and everything, the electric side was subsidizing the fuel oil, propane, gas meters and everything. It was only the legislature had set it up, it was only electric meters that they were.
We were just the mechanism to
Yeah.
collect the money because, there's so many different propane companies out there.
Right.
Feral gas, dependable gas. There's
Yeah,
so
it's
many.
just easier to go.
Everyone has an
with
electric
the-
meter. 99.999% of people.
And consumers doesn't have the option to opt out, do they?
I don't believe they do.
So
I'd have to read
So
the-
part of that 70,000 that they were bringing in was probably from consumers' meters as well.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the tariff or I'm not sure if
Yeah.
they do opt in.
Yeah.
But yeah, part of the 70,
It's definitely
Right.
coming from consumer meters.
theoretically, I'm sure From could still apply, and maybe they could get some grant money because they could make the argument, they're not going to because of the administrative portion, but maybe most of the Lowell community and school district is outside of our service territory, so they might still be eligible for 35 or 40,000 if they wanted to, so we can't attribute, hey, we gave the state 32, we were the reason From got 70. It's probably because, like you said, consumers is also collecting.
Yeah, they weren't getting it because we contributed, but us contributing it felt like we were getting the benefit and doing your, or doing our part for that pool, knowing that we were getting more out of it than we were putting in, but when there's no guarantee of that, why are we doing it?
Do we show this as a line item on the bill? I was trying to look up my
I
bill.
think
It
it's
is,
required by.
yeah.
Okay, so it's,
LIEAF,
okay.
yep.
It's basically, I mean,
It's a
basically it's tax.
It is a tax,
It's a 93-cent a month tax. And, I mean, if you're a low tax type person, then you might think that opting out is probably in the best interest of our community, or at least our community members, our ratepayers.
The sense from our other West Michigan munis is that this is a tax, and this tax is being used to subsidize others in the state. And as long as your write-offs don't exceed what you would have paid in tax, you can just guarantee through a line item in your rates that all your dollars do stay local, instead of wondering if they're gonna come back. You see what I mean?
And even before the new rules that made it, administratively, not feasible for FAM to do this, even before that, I guess if we hadn't been contributing anything, FAM still would have been getting most likely the same.
Yeah, we did write a letter of support, and I do think that helped, and we wrote how much we contributed, and so I do think we were not the sole reason, but we helped.
It helps, but in theory, they could have gotten some grants without us.
Agreed.
Okay, any more discussion?
To me, this seems pretty simple. I think we need to get out of this, decide what to do with the rest of it for the next year, case by case.
So-
And given how well we handle write-offs or minimize write-offs anyway, and the A+ is still an option, I think we can manage the community's need, or at least within our customer base, at the very least, and still keep write-offs low.
So I'm hearing a motion from Dave to opt out of the,
I move to,
out of.
It's a great chair right there, yeah.
95.
I move that we opt out of Public Act 95 for the upcoming year.
I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Will the line item disappear then with July's bill?
I believe it actually runs through the end of July or the end of August.
Okay, so there's a little
Decision
bit of
has to be
holdover.
made because then you have to submit your meter count, and they do a calculation because the pot can't exceed $50 million, so they make the adjustment, and then they have to wait until everybody implements it. It'll be later this summer for sure.
Okay.
All right, next two items relate to easement acceptance, both for projects in our 5-year plan / system improvement plan. I called Perry about this yesterday. The way easements work, the Light Power Board has to accept and then recommend the easement acceptance to the council for final approval. July 1st is the next council meeting. In case work does start in these areas, I didn't want there to be any work done where there wasn't an easement, even though we knew it was coming later. Didn't want to get ourselves in any trouble with easements. So the first easement is with a resident named Wanda Lee Fox. It's the only easement that GRP has stated we need in the dock addition. All the transformers, except for this one, we're able to locate between the curb and road in the city right away. In this area, because of gas and congestion, it's just not possible. And the way the system's designed electrically, it made sense for us to approach Wanda. She gave the thumbs up. We're very honest with her. She talked with her realtor, made sure this made sense. As you can see in the diagram, it's only 5 feet by 10 feet area, but in reality, the transformer is even smaller than that, and that's just the area we can access. So it's a fairly small transformer. Pretty standard, just my recommendation and staff's recommendation to accept the easement, which will allow us to place a transformer there. It's been drafted by Dick Wendt. It'll go to City Council if the board approves on Monday.
Any questions? If not, I would entertain.
Just the one question I had, so we added these two easement items on the agenda, not just to, earlier, but.
Yep.
And so is that just because it's convenient, or just because it's, just to make sure we let us get the work done between now and the next scheduled meeting? Knowing that it has to go to council.
Correct.
Is it just because they came up, it's, hey, we have to have this meeting here, let's just do this now and move the timeline up 2 weeks?
Move the timeline up 2 weeks so that we don't have to slow down severance if they get to these spots. I wouldn't want them to start working these areas
Right,
without having the easement. We don't think they're gonna be there, mainly because, I'll talk about it next item, because they're stuck in the township park underneath the water. We'll talk about that with the next item, but it was just moving it up 2 weeks because there was the opportunity. If there wasn't the special meeting, I wouldn't have asked Barry to call for a special meeting to have these, but just taking advantage of the opportunity.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that was out there, because the original intent of the meeting was just for that Public Act 95, so.
Dick had them done. I know there's the potential for work to start here where we don't have to slow down anybody else's progress. It's like, hey, we're allowed to have them. Council meeting's Monday, might as well get them approved if we can.
Yeah, I think it's fine, I just want to make sure that's clear, so
Yep.
that people would wonder, hey, are we trying to sneak things into this
No.
meeting or stuff like that? But
So we pay the dollar to the city?
We do.
The city then pays the dollar to the London?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's having a great year.
So I would entertain a motion to accept the Fox easement acceptance and send that to the council for Monday night.
So moved. I'll support.
It's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
All right, second item, well, it's similar in form. There's some other things I'd like to discuss to give this more context and greater depth. Dependable gas, if you've ever driven by there, we have power lines that run right through the middle of their property, right from Jackson Street going east. They've been like that for decades. We also have a river crossing on the west side of Jackson going north that's given us many problems over the years, and we've trimmed that out. Ultimately, this easement accomplishes many things, all win-win-win for the community, /Light Power ratepayers, Lowell Power itself, and dependable. You may remember as part of the severance bore work that we approved at the Township Park, we approved a second bore that is needed for Project 110, where we're going to bring our 1247 up to the northeast portion of town. So this bore is needed for that project, but that will also eliminate the river crossing. And this easement will allow us to relocate the majority of our power lines that run right through Dependable's property to the west end of their property. That infrastructure will be underground, and to the southern portion of their property where they'll be overhead. Does that make sense? So if we go to the graph, let's look at, on your packet, Exhibit B-1, underground easement. It's page 6 on the easement document. As you can see, it shows Grand River Drive, and in kind of the middle of that diagram it says proposed 6-foot wide electric easement, and it's running from north to south. That is all underground infrastructure.
And that's currently in place?
It's not currently in place. This is where we would locate the bore. That would happen to get things across the river. It would allow for the removal of the river crossing. And in part, this easement, along with, you see on the bottom portion, the southern part, it says proposed easement. Kind of the bottom portion of the property line. And if we go to page 8, you'll have to tilt your head. It says Grand Rapids Eastern Railroad. And above that, it shows 6-foot wide easement. On the entire southern portion of Dependable's property, we're obtaining an easement. So we'll locate underground running south to north on Jackson, and overhead running west to east
Along the
along
track.
the southern portion of the property. And this will allow for the removal of the majority of the overhead on Dependable's property. Now, on the page 9, you'll see, if you tilt your head, it says Dependable Gas, 1245, Grand River Drive, Jackson Street easement. You show a line running north and then goes northeast, and then a line running straight east. That is overhead that's already in place, that we've never had an easement for, that's been there. We have prescriptive easement. We're capturing this at the same time just to have the easement. Although we know we have the prescriptive, we'd rather just capture everything that will be located on their property into this one easement agreement. So there's never any question in the future. Does that make sense? But all of the other overhead that runs to the overhead on this final easement page will be eliminated. So a lot of their property will become usable, they can construct buildings, it's more aesthetically pleasing, etc. So this accomplishes reliability for light and power and our 5-year plan, and then it helps Dependable out by getting rid of a lot of the power lines, putting them underground, or locating them to the southern portion of the property. Now, Severance Electric is scheduled to do this work. Right now, their boring rig is underwater at the township park. The river snuck up on them, and actually all their trucks were underwater too. And yeah, they got the trucks out, but the boring rig, which Ryan said is like an $800,000 machine that they rented. Don't know if they did go to the weather.com site and look at the crest levels of water, but apparently they didn't. They kept it there over the weekend, and it's underwater. So I'm not sure if that machine is damaged or not. Fortunately, we have a contract with them with a performance bond, so if they ultimately can't perform, we get 10% of the project cost. And second, it's just a flat fee. So no matter what troubles they have, it just costs us what it costs us. Before they had a flood, when they pulled the tubes, I believe there's 4 pipes, one of the pipes broke, didn't come through, and they actually have to rebore the entire thing.
Oh, so
GRP
the pipe
says.
stuck halfway through and they can't, or the pipe.
So that happened before the flood. So needless to say, progress has been slow at the township park. Jerry Hale's aware of the situation. There's little, if anything, we can do to control it. It's their operation. Michael's confident. Severance is a big enough company. They're going to fulfill the job. They're going to get it done. It's just a matter of when, but it's just been unfortunate. I know Perry might be concerned about the Pink Arrow Day, which is still 2 months away. Talked with Ryan. He doesn't anticipate we're going to approach any sort of problem unless it continues to rain every 3rd day for the next 60 days.
Wet.
It's been very wet, but it looks like we have a dry stretch for the next 15 days. I think 30 to 40% chance of rain at most on a given day. But anyway, I did want this in place. Even though we don't think they're going to be there for a while, I'd rather have this done, just in case things go well and there's a change of fortune. Does that make sense? Yep. So that's what this easement is for.
Okay.
So I'll move to approve recommendation of this easement for the, for TPC for the boring and the other easements associated with that property.
With Dependable. Okay,
I'll second.
it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Any questions? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
I didn't put board comment on there, but if you wanna, feel free.
And I've got to get back to
Just glad it's a short meeting so we can go watch Michigan play in the College World Series.
Yeah,
Sports ball. Yeah. Salute.
I do have one. So, is this on the news? Indiana, Michigan, I don't know if it's in the legislature, whatever, looking at mandatory smart meters, yada, yada, yada. It's gonna increase, not ours, but it was on the major news the other day. increase everybody's, I mean, it's gonna jump their bills huge. I mean,
Mandatory smart meters is gonna jump people's bills?
well, they were talking about these smart meters and whether they're going, whether it's in the legislature or not, that they're going to this, and it was going to increase, I mean, it was, you know, I don't know, $50 a bill that it was gonna increase.
I'd like to, if you could send me that article, I haven't heard that.
It was, we'd have to look, it was on the, man, I caught a little bit of it, so I, you know, stay tuned and listen to it, and I was going, wow, I mean.
I can tell you, DTE and consumers, if they're not finished, all of their customers will be AMI very soon, if not all of them are already. And that's like 91%. They have to allow an opt-out, but it's like 0.1%. So over 90% of the state already has AMI meters, so I don't know why these other 9% that would be representative of municipal customers, and we set our own rates, could cause this average of 45 to 50. I'm not doubting you, but it just sounds like somebody didn't know what they were talking about to me.
Okay.
You saw it, you heard it on the internet, right?
No, it was on TV 3. I was pretty sure it was on.
That's down in Kalamazoo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Battle Creek.
Could be fake news.
Okay,
Well, good news, we have our own AMI. They haven't jumped the bills by 50, so whatever happens, it doesn't impact us.
so I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And I'll support.
Been moved and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Let me just see if I can